doing? All right, I think we're about ready to go. Audio okay? Let me know. Audio okay? Let me know if audio's okay. I'll give you about 30 seconds. Big Moobie's going to be calling in. Supposed to. We don't have a lot of time with him, so we're going to have to go right to that quickly. Audio check. Sound good? Sound good? Let me know in the comments area. Somebody, please. We'll just go ahead and get going. All right, sounds good. Great. Thanks. It is Thursday afternoon, East Lansing, Michigan. Come on in, gather around, gather around, gather around. My name is Jim Comparoni, publisher, SpartanMag.com, covering Michigan State sports for years and years and years. At Spartan Magazine, previously SpartanMag.com, since the beginning of the internet. Been having a great time with that. Appreciate all of the support we get from Spartan Maggers all over the country, all over the world, really. And today we'll be talking Michigan State sports, Michigan State football 2-0 after that victory at Maryland. Very exciting game, very productive game, very encouraging game for Michigan State football, not only for that game in this season, but going forward. You can just tell there's a level of sharpness that has been instilled in a very short time with Michigan State football. Ron Big Moobie Armstrong is going to be calling in here real soon. I should get a pen so I can write notes while I speak with him. He'll be calling here momentarily. Anyway, my name is Jim Comparoni, publisher of SpartanMag.com. Make sure to give us a like, subscribe to this channel, and we would love it if you'd consider going over to SpartanMag.com, becoming a full-time SpartanMag.com member, subscriber. Over there, check it out for continued coverage of Michigan State football and everything that pertains to Michigan State football, analysis, features, and all those good things that go with covering a Michigan State football season. And it's getting off to a pretty good start right now. Don Strait, thank you. Don Strait for a generous donation in the SpartanMag tip jar. We really appreciate that. Thanks a lot, Don. I think we've got Big Moobie calling in right now.
Call from
Big Moob.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail.
All right, let's bring him in. Ron Armstrong, Big Moobie, Michigan State football analyst for SpartanMag.com for a number of years, my good friend, and it's great to speak with him. I've not spoken with Moobie since the game on Saturday. He predicted it. He thought Michigan State was going to march down to College Park, Maryland, come back with a victory, take care of business. They did. I certainly thought it was possible, but I thought if Michigan State was going to do it, they'd have to do it in ways that we had not seen yet demonstrated, and Michigan State went forward and demonstrated a few of those things, including Aiden Childs exploding, Nicholas Mars looking great, all those things. Ron, how you doing, man?
Hey, doing fantastic. Hey, great to be with you.
All right, so I've not spoken with you since the game, so we could probably talk for 3 hours right now. I know you don't have a lot of time, but your thoughts about the game in general, or in particular, if there's something specifically you want to get to, what were your thoughts as that game developed?
You know, one of the things that sometimes as fans we get caught up in is the how and not the what. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think the how is, you know, will ultimately be important, but the what is that we won the game. Mm-hmm. And let's focus on that. You know, we were to go down there and get a W. And I thought, like I said, going into the game, some of the issues that we had, you know, in the opener, I thought were more, you know, correctable mistakes, things that we could get in the practice field and fix. And, you know, a lot of those things showed up on Saturday against Maryland. And I think one of the things, though, that real quick I want to touch on that I think folks are a bit surprised about, that I'm not, is that the team just kept fighting. Even last year, you and I talked about it last year, that team just kept showing up, kept getting up off the mat. You know, when they had every opportunity to quit, they did not. Those group of kids just kept getting up off the mat, kept fighting week in and week out, even when, you know, they were probably outmanned, you know, and they just kept fighting. So it didn't surprise me that, you know, in the game against Maryland, and when there was opportunities, at critical moments, our kids rose to the occasion, because they've been doing that the last 2-3 years. That even if the scoreboard didn't reflect it, the kids kept fighting through. So that was good to see that they fought through and got a W. You know, I know we talk all the time that losing becomes habitual, but so does winning. You know, finding a way to win, you know, and getting on the road, getting a quality Big Ten win as your first time out with that new staff, that's just going to, you know, I keep saying it, seeds of a successful program. These are the things that you can't skip the steps, but that was good to see.
Can't skip the steps. That's something you said to me during the offseason that you detected with this team and this program, and I've stolen that phrase and used it a few times. Also seeing a lot of the evidence. Of course, when you're winning, there's a lot of camaraderie, but, you know, the veterans that have come back and new players all say that they've been, I don't want to say pleasantly surprised, but you get the sense that a brotherhood has formed quickly with this program. Now, you know, there was a certain number of returning letter winners who wanted to be part of a winning program again, and guys coming in here to play for their own reasons, but also I'm sensing they're getting a kick out of being a team too, wanting to be a part of something that's getting established. And you keep hearing that. Have you heard that? Are you buying into that? Do you think that is a component to this, with Michigan State being able to stick in and play for 60 minutes? Part of it was the togetherness that they've forged in a short time with this program.
Absolutely. I think there's a you know what, it's just a great group of young men that, you know, it matters to them to put the uniform on, it matters to them to represent the university, and it matters to them that they go out and play well. And I think a lot of those kids experience a lot of success in high school, and, you know, they're just thrilled to have an opportunity to go out and compete and win games. And, you know, success, and, you know, you get a taste of success, it becomes contagious, and you want more. So I think it's just, you know, yes, there's some. It seems like the personalities in the room all mesh well together. I think that's the coaching staff leading that charge. And I think it's just Michigan State, man. It's just, you know, you get here, you find out, like, oh, this is a great place. And I think a lot of our kids really enjoy being here.
Right. What part of the game on Saturday, Michigan State's victory over Maryland, surprised you? You mentioned that you expected some tenacity from this team, and they showed that. Anything surprise you in terms of player development or certain elements that have come along rapidly?
You know, I think just the on the fly, making adjustments on the fly. You I think that's the biggest thing that I've noticed really quickly with our defensive staff, especially just things that gave us trouble early, wouldn't give us trouble late. So just those on the fly adjustments. It tells me that the kids are getting in, getting in the film, getting in the scouting report. Even some of those offensive plays where the formation the play was right and the kids were in the right spot. So some of those things, just like I said, just the cohesiveness of the whole group, man. It seems like whatever they're teaching over there in the building is on the practice field and in the meeting room. They're bringing it to game day in a short order. I mean, we're talking week 2, and this staff hasn't been together a year. So I mean, this is remarkable how quickly the operation is turned around.
Mm-hmm. On the fly adjustments. We talked about this after the game when we covered it at SpartanMag.com. Yeah, Maryland got some guys open deep in that first drive. Michigan State playing press to see how that would stand up, and Maryland attacked it and had some open receivers. Edwards, who is a good quarterback, missed 3 of them, but got connected on that slot fade, which is, 15, 19 yards. Probably not considered a deep shot, but where he caught it was, in the corner of the end zone, 25 yards downfield. Connected on that one. Michigan State got out of press for the rest of the half. They were able to seamlessly go to variations of zone defense. And, Maryland scores one more touchdown the rest of the half, and that was set up by an interception deep into the red zone. If you'd have told me after that opening series that Maryland would not really drive more than 40 yards the rest of the half, I would be surprised and I would take it, but that speaks to the adjustments. This defense, they've lost some players. Dylan Tatum, I think, is a big loss. He only played a quarter or 2 quarters in that first game. He was coming off the bench, and he had sideline-to-sideline speed, and he showed eye-popping speed. Everyone knows he has speed. That was one of the first times I've seen him show it from sideline to sideline because he's playing the safety position. The defense is pretty good right now. A chance to become even better. Would have been even better with a guy like Tatum starting or coming off the bench. You lose him, Chance Rucker's out. They've had some other dings in here and there, so they're not playing 24 players on defense like they did in the first game. But they're playing 20. They're playing a lot of guys on defense. Some of these guys they've only had for 4 or 5 months. Some guys for 8 months. 20 guys going too deep on defense, a lot of participation. And they're doing a lot of things on defense in terms of coverages and schemes. And you're not seeing many mental errors or busts. The opposite, you're seeing guys knowing what to do and getting there fast, arriving at the ball with numbers, getting people on the ground, defeating blocks, making tackles, keeping leverage on the ball with the team concept. 11 brains all formed into one brain, playing one brain defense, which is what Rossi had at Minnesota, with some talent that was good, some talent that was just kind of, ham and eggers out there a little bit getting it done. But they're varied on defense, and there's a lot of players playing, and they've only been together for a short time. But to your point, how did you say it? The adjustments, or what was the point? How did you describe it in terms of the
just
defense?
On the fly, man? Just right on the fly in game adjustments, man. I think that's on the defensive side, just recognizing that. Okay, you know what? We might not be ready to play these guys man across the board. We'll pick our spots and play man, but we're going to make them, go to length of the field on 15-play drives, and we think at some point they're going to throw one to us. So be patient, and when the opportunity comes, make the play. And I thought a couple of times our DBs were able to do that. Get some, you got to get tips and overthrows, and we were able to do that.
And then we saw on third down, Maryland had success statistically on third down, especially with completion percentage. But there were a few plays on third down, like that opening touchdown drive. Michigan State brought zone pressure, ended up being a 4-man rush, but one of those was Angelo Gross coming from the nickel position, whereas Bogle dropped back into coverage. And I can't remember if it was cover 6 or cover 4 or what the zone was, but it was zone. Defense, the quarterback seemed a little bit, he didn't know what it was right away, and he didn't have much time to think because Gross was on him right now, but Gross misses the sack. Now the quarterback who has some mobility gets out of there. He's getting extended pressure, and he just kind of shovels it to a receiver. He catches it, and the pile forms, and the pile gets pushed over the first down yardage. So statistically, that's a completion. Statistically, that's a third down conversion. But Michigan State's defense had them fooled, and Gross misses a sack. He's missed 1 or 2 this year, but that's a scheme that works, but it didn't get executed. But even though Maryland went ahead and scored, and it could have been points that contributed to a loss, Michigan State being varied on third down and bringing different looks on third down, but it's different looks each time. I think that quarterbacks are going to be challenged against this Michigan State defense, which has pretty good talent across the board. Maybe not a lot of superstars, but pretty good talent here and there, defeating blocks, playing well as a unit. And the defense so far this year has surprised me, Ron.
Absolutely. I think just how well we're playing team defense. I saw a couple of your videos, and we've talked about this, where they're just leveraging the football.
Yeah.
Everybody's getting their gap, being firm in their gap, and then the man replace guy is fitting up and finishing the play. So it's the team defense. The concept it seems like it's a more simplified scheme. The base of it is simplified. Now there's some variances and wrinkles in it that make it, you can get a bit more complicated, but the base, its core, is really simple scheme. Guys can pick it up fast. You don't see a whole lot of head spinning out there. I think that's why we're playing faster and playing more sound, just because guys, they know where they're supposed to be, and they're getting there in a hurry, and they're getting there with effort and attitude.
We talked about in that first game, Avion Gross having to play, and he had never really played with the starters in practice, ever in practice. He was a second stringer. He'd been around for 5 months. Scout team the week of the game because of injuries and Malik Spencer getting ejected for targeting. He's on the field for 25 snaps, crunch time against Florida Atlantic. Did not make any major mistakes. Played one snap in this game, so he's back second or third string. But this game, Chance Rucker becomes injured. So Jeremiah Hughes, transfer from LSU, he's playing. Ed Woods becomes injured. Did I mention that already? I think I just mentioned that. But Jeremiah Hughes, who did not play in the first game, he was not in pads in the first game, but he was on the sideline. And true sophomore, played a little bit at LSU, maybe 30 snaps last year, over 100 snaps on special teams. Boom, you're in the game. And I didn't notice any rookie mistakes out there. A guy, I don't know if he missed some practice time during the FAU week. Like I said, he was on the sidelines, but not in uniform. But tag, you're it. You're in the game. You're playing corner against a quality wide receiver crew from Maryland. I didn't see Jeremiah Hughes make any mistakes. In fact, I saw one play where he changed direction to fit in on run defense, and he accelerated as he changed direction. And like I said yesterday in the VCast, right there, I'm like, okay, I see what LSU saw in him right there. Just that one play, that was a little bit uncommon. Jeremiah Hughes, second time in 2 games, a guy comes out of nowhere, new to the program, and goes in there and plays good, solid, responsible football in crunch time situations.
Absolutely. Like I said, I talked about it before. That just shows you. Now, 2 things. Number one, that tells me that the right things are being taught in practice. The kids are digesting the material. Also, the guys who aren't getting, the lion's share of the reps, they're getting in there and watching film. They're paying attention in the meetings. They're paying attention to the scouting report, because through 2 weeks, it has been next man up, and you have to be ready. And these guys are preparing their tails off, and that's why you're not seeing any of these, the drop-offs, because they're getting in there, they're watching the film, they're getting extra reps in, they're getting extra time in. They're probably meeting as a group on their own. All these things that pay off. You just never know when your number's going to be called, and to these guys credit, when they were called upon, they were prepared and they were ready to go.
Yeah, if you'd have told me back in April, Darius Snow's going to play about 30 snaps, and his speed's going to be okay. He plays a Sam linebacker role when the opponent goes with 2 tight ends. Maybe not a guy that's going to cover a slot receiver, down the seam for 40 yards or something like that. Maybe he can, but he looks a lot better than he did in the spring coming off the bench. Maverick Hansen comes back. The program needed him. Captain, leader, exuberant Spartan, coming off the bench. Van Sumeren surpassed him in the depth chart. Jordan Hall has leadership potential. Good, solid, true freshman year last year, maybe playing earlier than would be ideal, but gave a good effort last year, learned. He's second string. They went out to the portal, got Jordan Turner out of Wisconsin, who's playing some physical football at linebacker. You got Maverick Hansen, Darius Snow, Jordan Hall coming off the bench. And as far as I can tell, everybody's gung-ho about the team. That's a pretty good second string. And
absolutely,
I would not have predicted that in April, that those 3 guys, if you'd have told me they're coming off the bench and playing, I'd be like, well, what does Snow look like? He looks good, but he's coming off the bench. Okay. Maverick Hansen's coming off the bench. Jordan, wow, who's in front of him? There must be some good football being played. And that is indeed the case.
That is. And what's the flip side of that is you got a lot of fresh bodies, without a ton of drop off. So that's important. But listen, we know as the season progresses, guys are going to get nicked up, and to have that quality of backups that can come in and play starter quality football is going to be key as we get into the meat of this Big Ten season, because as well as I do, this thing's a meat grinder, and you need quality depth. That's often the difference between the top tier teams and the rest of the league is the quality of their backups. And I think that's going to pay off for us as we move forward in the season.
They've already surprised me, and I wonder if they're going to continue to surprise me. On the defensive side of the ball, playing that team defense, playing with physicality. I mentioned this yesterday in the VCast also. I watched Nakai Martinez play for Central Florida against Oklahoma last year after he committed to Michigan State. I went and watched that game, and he kind of had some bad habits. He was a true sophomore. I thought he was throttling down too early on a number of occasions. The physicality he's playing with now, full bore, maybe I only watched one game last year. Maybe it wasn't fair, but and I'm sure he had it in them. I don't know if he played like that in other games. But based on the one game sample size I saw of him last year, they've made a change in Nakai Martinez and gotten as good a football out of him already. So I'm wondering about some of these other guys. When legend Cavazos gets on the field, I don't know what it's going to look like, but he repped as a second stringer pregame last week, did not get on the field. In the safety position, they were doing a lot of substitutions in that first game with Tatum off the bench early. There's been plans to get Armorion Smith out there. I don't know what that's going to look like when he's out there. But against Maryland, they were not able to do a lot of rotations. Nakai Martinez and Malik Spencer pretty much played every snap in that game, which is not what they want to do, but that tells me there was a little bit of a drop-off there. And like I said in pregame, it was Cavazos and true freshman Justin Denson warmed up as the second string. Now, Armorion Smith will get in there at some point, but I'm curious about some of these other guys. Caleb Coley's still around. He's been nursing some things. I think we'll see him later in the season. Andrew Brinson, true freshman. Can they get some progress out of Ade Willie? He had a mistake in that FAU game. He got on the field early in the second half, press coverage. They tested him deep with Felton, who's an excellent receiver. And Ade Willie gave up a 35-yard reception on that play, but that's the best coverage I've ever seen out of Willie.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know what? That was great coverage. That was just sometimes the offense wins the play.
Yeah.
That was really good coverage. It was a great ball. I mean, I don't know what else the kid can do on that one.
That's progress.
It's easy to kind of kick it's easy to kind of kick a kid. Oh, it's always him. No, that was good football. Sometimes the offense, they're on scholarship too. They practice, and you just tip your hat to them and get in the huddle. But that was, like you said, that was really good coverage. And, like you said, it's progress from Ade. Now next thing you want to do is see him, complete the play next time, force an incomplete or a pass breakup. But that coverage and the leverage and where he was supposed to be, he was there.
Did you see that one play? The play got loose to the sideline, I don't know if it was spilled outside or what, but at some point, maybe there was a missed tackle. But at some point, Ken Talley and Jordan Hall, from virtually a similar starting point, were chasing the ball to the sideline. And Talley had a little bit of a head start or step inertia going, and Hall was a little bit more from a standstill. But Ken Talley outran Jordan Hall to the sideline, and they're both sprinting. And we're just seeing glimpses and glimpses of Ken Talley being a high horsepower guy. Did you notice? Did you notice that play?
I did. I didn't know the specific play, but I told you in camp, leading up to it.
Yes, you did.
That kid had pop.
Yeah.
That he had pop. It was just I'm like, he's one of those kids, man, that 2 or 3 years you'll see him wearing a number 20 or something like that jersey for Penn State wreaking havoc.
Yes.
And we just happen to have him.
Yes.
And you just see it. You can see the like you said, the horsepower. That kid has something. And it just shows up. It just keeps showing up. The more he's out there, you can see it like, hey, this kid has some burst that for his body type just doesn't look natural.
Yes.
But man, that kid has some burst. He has some burst, and he's just scratching the surface.
And he's second string right now. They've got some players on second string.
For sure.
You mentioned you heard some things in the spring. I think the first scrimmage, and I asked around a little bit and found out he had a hard hit, which caused a fumble. And then I didn't hear as much about him through my particular grapevine leading up to the game. But when he made some noise in FAU game, you were like, that's what I was hearing. That's what I was talking about. And he had a play in this game where he gets to the quarterback. It's nearly a fumble. And I think it was a wrist club, turns the corner, accelerates. And I mentioned this to Conendike yesterday in the VCast. I had to rub my eyes because it looked to me like he was wearing a Penn State uniform. I was like, wait a minute. Because like you said, that he was at Penn State for a reason, a 4-star coming out of Philadelphia. And in my opinion, Penn State has had more quality pass rushers in the last 5 years than Ohio State and Michigan. Ohio State and Michigan have had some big timers here and there, but Penn State gets off the bus with like 7 of them. And
they just find them. And they just find those guys.
Yeah.
They know what to look for.
And Talley was going to be one of them. He's at Michigan State now. Mel Tucker went out and got him, and Michigan State's happy that they've got him. Bogle continues to look like a different player. The sack that he had on Saturday, They slid the protection the other way, and they brought they pulled the guard over, like, power pass protection is what Peyton Manning used to call it. I don't know what they called it in Maryland, but he's taking on a pull guard. His first step is fast. The pull guard is over there almost a little bit late. So the second step, he's kind of, as he lands, he's withstanding kind of a lateral hit, but he accelerates into that step, plants his foot, has that ankle flexibility that Todd Grantham used to talk about, turns the corner and gets in there for a sack. Saban used to talk about the importance of two-step speed. Back in the 90s, I remember him saying, before Julian Peterson blew up, Saban was like, we run a 10-yard dash, and you know who has the best 10-yard dash on the team? Julian Peterson. It's not a receiver, it's not a running back, it's Julian Peterson. And the two-step 10-yard dash, I don't know if they still time the 10-yard dash, but I'll bet you Bogle's pretty good at it. And not only does he have it, but he can turn the corner, withstand a chuck on that thing, and get the ankle down and plant and go. I'm like, he's been serviceable the last couple of years. That guy looks like an NFL player to me. I don't know.
He looks healthy. He looks comfortable in what he's being asked to do, and he just looks like a guy who's just matured, man, and just playing the best football of his college career. And I'm happy to see it because, he's been through a lot. He transferred to Florida, had some injuries. I think he lost almost a whole season a couple years ago with a foot, ankle, whatever it was. And just to see that kid, like you said, he's playing with a lot more pop too. I don't remember him being this stout on the edge as well. Like, he's setting the edge with force. He's taking on double teams. He's violent with his hands. Everything you want to see. He's showing that closing speed. He's closing off the tight off the hip of the tackle. He's not going all the way around running the tees. He's tight to the hip. He's turning the corner. He's getting there with effort, and it's just good to see from that young man.
Now, you remember early in the 2022 season, we talked about it. You might recall he was firm against the run early in the year. Went out with a season-ending injury against Minnesota. Ironically, Rossi was on the field, not against Bogle's people, but Minnesota destroyed Michigan State that day. And that week, I was talking about the Minnesota defense, unknowingly that coordinator would be in East Lansing someday. But Bogle, you might remember, played some good stout run defense during the blowout loss at Washington. So we saw a little bit of it there. But in terms of getting turned loose to turn the corner and be the pass rusher that he was early in his Florida career, it wasn't there. And that gets back to what I've talked about a number of times. How many players in this program the previous 3 years were just kind of hamstrung mentally and not able to pull the pin and turn it loose? You're seeing a different Bogle now, a different Halliday, different Angelo Gross, and
different Chuck Brantley.
Oh, gosh.
Chuck Brantley's playing some great football. I don't know if he's gone unnoticed. That kid is having it. He's playing some really good, disciplined, sound. Just you always knew Chuck was a fighter. He's going to put his face in the fan and hit you with every ounce of that 180-pound body. He's going to bring all of it. But sometimes he would gamble and not be sound in the scheme. Man, he is just playing his third, playing his quarter, playing his flat, whatever the assignment is. He's there. He's disciplined. He's getting his hands on footballs, and he's just having a good start to the season. I'm happy to see that from Chuck Brantley as well.
Yeah, he came out for interviews yesterday. We'll be putting that video up on the channel here pretty soon. And he's excited. And, the tackle that he made on that reverse early in the game, I asked him on that particular play, was that within the scheme? Because I kind of thought he was kind of coming out of, the far edge containment to duck under to make a tackle. He said, no, that was kind of outside. I was kind of going on my own there. I said, are you allowed to do that? He goes, kind of, but you better make the play if you do. And he's,
right.
C guy, tackle guy, got him on the ground. But the plays against the run in the first half, a couple of good ones. And I put the video up over at SpartanMag.com, that key 3rd and 4 stoppage before Maryland's missed field goal in the fourth quarter. Key play for Michigan State, run fits across the board, physicality. Martinez, fitting it in real hard on the wide receiver insert. And Brantley's got to be part of cover 3 because you have to respect the pass on 3rd and 4. Even though they're in a tight bunch formation, you have to respect it. So he's in a 3 deep kind of, but he has a gap also because there's 8 blockers, 9 gaps. He's the 9th guy. If it's to his side, the gap opens up and he fires, comes in, makes a tackle firm, like you said, maybe 170 pounds soaking wet, and makes a stick there that was so important because a yard short of the first down. And Maryland trying to kick a field goal to go up 2 scores there. They miss it. But Brantley right there, a play that leads to the play, turning point type of play. Under the radar a little bit, but it was Charles Brantley against the run repeatedly in this game. And, he's dealt with some upper body issues through his career. He's excited and exuberant now. If you're Michigan State, he played every snap in that game, but you would love to get him some relief in there. You'd love for Jeremiah Hughes to come around, and when Woods comes back, if he's back this weekend, I don't know if he would be or not, but you'd love to get a 3-man rotation there. You'd love to see more progress from Ade Willie so that Charles Brantley does not have to play 70 snaps, 65 snaps in a game, because you need him on the field all year, and he's a guy that's had some upper body dings, and he is playing at a high level with his intensity and his footwork and everything. It's a young man getting into his 20s now also as a 4-star recruit. And all these guys are kind of enjoying playing with one another. Quickly on offense before I let you go, what did you think about Childs bursting onto the scene and, well, Nick Marsh doing so, and also the run game still trying to find its way?
I thought, a couple of things. It's really good to see that, the deep ball make connections with that. But I thought the bigger thing is that even we weren't connecting on them, we kept throwing them. So, defenses are going to have to defend that. At some point, you got a guy open. Baseball term, a long foul ball. Yeah, it was a strike, but you knew that guy was on that pitch.
And you changed the way you pitch. You changed the way you pitch after that too.
Exactly. So teams seeing us continue to throw deep. Even if it wasn't hit, we weren't making those connections. You still got to defend that. Then you have Nick Marsh burst on the scenes. Now we're completing those passes. Overnight, Montori Foster and Glover and those become better receivers now. The run game becomes better. So it's important that those deep shots that we keep throwing them, and it's critical that we make we connect on them. As far as the turnovers, I think some of the obviously we want to cut down on the turnovers. Some of that stuff is just growing pains you're gonna have to deal with when you got a young guy out there slinging the rock 39 times. So that just comes with the deal.
Sure.
As far as the O-line, I think that's the group I really need to see, take steps forward, because that's going to be the determinant of how great our season turns out. Is what can we get from that offensive line? I don't know if they got to shuffle the deck a little bit, but I think that's where we're really at now. We're at this critical point where we have to be able to run the football in our terms, and we just haven't been able to do that.
Right. And Montori Foster was open deep twice in that game, 3 times possibly. And Childs happened to miss him in the first half. Otherwise, Montori Foster might have had all the headlines. He struggled in the opener against FAU, but he was getting open in this game. Doing it from that slot position now a little bit too. Because of the injuries to Alante Brown and getting Marsh into the playing group, they slid Montori Foster to the slot, more of his natural position, and he's looking good in there. So Montori Foster is going to continue to do good things. He's blocking well as well.
You and I talked about that in the spring, that I thought he looked a bit more comfortable, because he ran a little shake route in the spring. And I thought, well, that kind of looked a little bit like Jaden Reed, and we hadn't, to that point, we hadn't seen a lot of Montori Foster in the slot. And I think moving forward, that might be a spot in the field where we're going to be able to exploit some matchups, especially if we can get the tight end going, because you got a slot receiver that's a threat and a tight end. You can't double them both.
Right. And we'll see Velling get more and more into things. And it's interesting, Michigan State came out with a formation with 3 tight ends one time, but they split Velling out to a wide receiver. So you're making the defense kind of go jumbo if you can get that run game established. No, we got Velling out here as a slot receiver, and he's going to go deep on you. Deep,
right.
A little further than intermediate, and didn't hook up. But when Demetrius Martin came here and he said, Jonathan Smith and his coaches make you defend every blade of grass on the field. It's things like that. The deep shot on the first play of the drive a couple of times, P and 10, as D'Antonio used to say, on film, watch out, Michigan State will attack you that first play. So that might get the defense communicating on the heels a little bit, and what opens up probably the run game on P&10 then. So they get you coming and going. Maryland, late in that game, they were playing off coverage, as you saw. They were really hesitant and respectful of Michigan State. The deep shot for the 73-yard touchdown, 77-yard touchdown, whatever it was, that guy was in off coverage. He's playing scared on a freshman.
They don't play a ton of press, like I talked about last week. They don't play a ton of press. Even when they play man, it's more of a catch man. But they even got out of that. They weren't even playing man. I saw them playing some quarters, quarter zone quarters. I saw them playing some 6. They got out of that man match they were trying to run. They got out of that pretty early. And
they were off too, right? Off zone?
Yeah.
And when Marsh ran by him, that guy had a big cushion, and Marsh just ran up on him and went by him. Also, in the next drive, did the same thing. And then in the game-winning drive, Childs just taking those out routes is cushion, showing some veteran capabilities there. I mean, he's getting better every quarter. And, a couple interceptions. Jonathan Smith said on the radio show last night there was a little miscommunication on where to go with the ball when that was that open. And there's one more before I let you go. So that's a learning thing. And if you're the Big Ten Conference, you better hope that Aiden Childs doesn't do much more learning because he's on the cusp of being a big problem for people. There was that one play a third down when Maryland brought a zero blitz and he ends up throwing it into the grass. It's incomplete. Michigan State with it was a bunch. I think it was a type. Maybe it was a split out bunch, or maybe intermediate. And Montori Foster runs a flag, and he's open by 2 steps, and there's no safeties because they're blitzing. And he's got to make a decision right now because Michigan State's protecting with 6, and they're bringing 7. So he's got to get rid of it, and he throws an out. And you might remember he and Montori Foster were talking as they got back to the sideline, getting on the same page. That could have been a 65-yard touchdown to Montori Foster. So Childs is learning, where to put that ball on Masunis when he's into that cover 4 seam right there. Where to put the ball when you see that zero blitz, 7-man rush, and you got Foster out there. There's elements that they're not on the same page yet. 18-year-old guy, been on campus for 9 months. This is a dangerous, dangerous man, Aiden Childs, with some pretty good receivers. What were you about to say?
I think, just to put a bow on this, I think this is a great week. I posted it, that if I were as a coach, this is one of those weeks you're excited to get back to work.
Yeah.
You got a big win on the road. Still a lot of things to work out. Well, let's just be honest. We got an opponent that we should be able to go in there and work on some things, get a lot of guys in to get some reps, and just kind of build on that win. So it's a great week. I mean, it's a big week for the program, big week for Childs. Things should slow down a little bit. You should have clearer windows. The offensive line can kind of work on some things, get some confidence. This is one of those games where it can help you get better week 3 more than it would have been played week 1.
I agree. I'll let you go. You going to be over at the high school field on Friday night?
I am.
I'm going to be over there too. I want to check out Clarizio, so I'll hook up. I'll check in with you before that. If I get all my work done, I'm planning to get out there, so I might see you over there. All right. All right. Thanks a lot for your time. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Go Green.
There he goes. The great Ron Armstrong, Big Moobie. Great to have him with us. A lot of times we do this podcast at night, and he has a little more time at night. Some nights of the week. This is an afternoon this week because we were getting toward the weekend. We wanted to get this thing out there, so we're doing it Thursday afternoon this time. So thanks for Ron for checking in with us, taking a little time away from day jobs, as many of you are right now. Let's go over here to the comments area. Casey Carruthers says, go green from Eaton Rapids. Hunter says, go green. Groove Spoon says, go green from Grand Rapids. Desert Sparty says, hey, Comp, he's checking in from Arizona. Old Tuck, the bell cow's here. He's from Austin, Texas. So that's your starting 5. We got Old Tuck down low. Desert Sparty, he's the West Coast pretty boy. He's our shooting guard. Groove Spoon, he's at the 3. He's kind of a grinder. Hunter is the stretch 4. Casey Carruthers, he's running the point. Casey, you got it. Tag, you're it. Great to hear from you. Young Feezy Baby saying, hello, my friend. Good to see him. Tom Helderman, MSU 66 on the message board. Tom and Tanya checking in, both with COVID, so you're our only enjoyment today. Loved the film room post. We need more of your insights. Thanks a lot, Tom, and tell Tanya that we're thinking about her. We love you guys. Great to hear from you guys as well. Tom says he's MSU 66. That's his handle over at the Underground Bunker message board. Some of these people are subscribers over to SpartanMag.com, Underground Bunker message board. Over there, they chime in about all things Michigan State and other things off topic over at SpartanMag.com. And if you're not a member, Spartan Mag member, please consider becoming one. We'd love to have you over there. It's the place for Michigan State sports fans to congregate, share ideas, maybe argue a little bit, but it's all good. Spartan Gain says, go green from West Bloomfield. I assume that's what WB means. Young Feezy Baby says, sound is good. Thank you for that sound check early on. Desert Sparty said 3-0 would be a great start for the season. It's been a few years since that's happened. Yeah, when was the last time Michigan State was 3-0? I can't think. Big win at Maryland, being an 8-point underdog going out there. And I agree with what Ron says about the importance of this game. And everybody knows Prairie View is going to come up outmanned a little bit. It's an FCS team coming on the road. Michigan State's fired up. I've not watched Prairie View yet. The kid, Savage, wide receiver at 6'4", I watched a little bit of him last night. He's got some takeoff ability. I think there's a question in the mailbag. We will get to that in a moment. But Michigan State, Ron and I talked about this in the preseason. We thought it would have been better if Michigan State would have opened the season with Prairie View, work out some kinks, then Florida Atlantic, then Maryland. But as it's turned out, survived the Florida Atlantic game. Michigan State looked good there for a moment, 16-3, getting ready to go up 24-3. Almost pick six, then it's 16-10. You know what happened. The great thing about that Florida Atlantic game, and I think I mentioned this last week, is Michigan State's defense played real well. And then the offense continued to sputter. And next thing you know, Florida Atlantic's got the ball with a chance to win 2 or 3 times late in that game. So as well as the defense played, it's one thing to play well on defense, and then it's part of a 52-0 victory. Then, you're playing like 2.5 quarters, 3 quarters of real football. That was a case where Michigan State was playing good football. And then at the end, oh, by the way, defense, you have to go out and win it. You need to, secure victory. That way, that's kind of the way they stage and choreograph scrimmages, which we don't see. No matter how well one side of the ball is doing, D'Antonio used to fix it that, okay, the last 5 plays of the game's on the line on both sides. So he would you may remember some of those green-white games when the score on the scoreboard would just kind of change because D'Antonio wanted to set it up so the last couple of drives really meant something for those scrimmages. Well, Michigan State's defense was good that day. Michigan State was on the verge of a blowout against Florida Atlantic, but as it turned out, it was tight at the end, and the defense had to be on with Avion Gross on the field, and some others had to be on to protect that victory. And that spurred more growth coming out of that than against the Maryland team that's been a good offense, over 600 yards against UConn in the first game. They don't have Tagovailoa anymore, but it's still a good offense, and that Edwards is a good quarterback, and those receivers are good. The running back's pretty good. The offensive line, I said, was a little bit question mark. Michigan State strong in the defensive front, matched up against their weakness, and they controlled the day in terms of preventing Maryland from establishing the run, which had a big impact on what Maryland's decisions were late in the game in terms of kicking a field goal on 4th and 1 to go up 2 scores, which they missed. And then later on, 3rd and 1 with 3 minutes to go, 4th and 1 with 3 minutes to go, Maryland punted it back to them rather than trying to go for it on 4th and 1, which was you understand why they did it, but in retrospect, I'm sure Loxley would have rather tried, okay, let's see what happens if we go for it there. But the moral of the story is there that Maryland was not confident in their run game against Michigan State's defensive front, and they punted it. So defense has been good. A good defense is still going to give up 575 to Ohio State. So once you get into Game 5 going forward, we'll see exactly where the defense shakes out if they stay healthy and so forth. So this weekend, like I mentioned in the VCast, to me, this is about getting some guys some reps, especially in that defensive backfield. I mentioned with Ron Armstrong that it might not be ideal for Nakai Martinez and Malik Spencer to be playing every snap at safety. And they're playing hard and they're hitting hard. Ideally, you'd like to do what you did in the first game, which was having Dylan Tatum playing a lot of snaps. Don't have him anymore. But can Amorian Smith come in and become a factor? Legend Cavazos moves from corner to safety. Can he play? Hearing good things about Justin Denson as a true freshman safety. I expect Cavazos and Denson to get some playing time at safety and work through some things. And even if, regardless of who the opponent is, just get on the field, communicate, get on the same page, make some progress. Apologize. No commercial break, so sometimes that's going to happen. Anyway, Go Green 03 says, sounds good. Kevin, checking in from Glendale, Arizona. Old Tuck says, sound is good. Let's see. Action Jackson. Getting down to RFOL. Rough. I don't know what that means, but I don't disagree. And also, Don Strait, we appreciate Super Chat from him. Thanks a lot, Don. Really appreciate it. Heard you last night on the radio show. Great question that you asked Jonathan Smith last night on the radio show about which players he emulated growing up. And he mentioned Joe Montana, which ironically was one of mine also, except I'm talking about the Notre Dame version of Montana, like circa 78 or so. You guys don't mind that, do you? Hey, when I was a kid, Michigan State wasn't on TV. 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, that's when the TV penalty was going on. I didn't know what Spartan Stadium looked like on television until I was in the 6th grade. And I was that college football nerd that knew more about college football than any idiot in the elementary. I'm still that idiot, right? And I could tell you everything about Alabama's backfield and Oklahoma's backfield and Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan, all those teams that were on TV twice a year. did not know what the stadium looked like till like 6th grade. I remember seeing, I think it was the Michigan State game in 6th grade, 1979, the year after Kirk Gibson. And I was like, oh, so that's what Spartan Stadium looks like. I mean, by that time, I knew exactly what Fenway Park looked like. I know what the Rose Bowl looks like. I know what the Cotton Bowl looks like. I know what all these stadiums look like. And I'm growing up 1 hour from East Lansing. And because of that highly punitive probation that the NCAA handed down for a couple of suits and a couple of $500 handshakes, I think it was, Michigan State was not on TV. Huge penalty for Michigan State back then. So anyway, I was kind of a Joe Montana, Notre Dame circa fan with Vegas Ferguson and those guys. Apologize. That's my truth. Anyway, but same thing with Jonathan Smith last night. But he was emulating the 49ers version of Montana, 10 years later. Matthew Latham says, go green. Matthew Latham knows a lot about Michigan State hockey. We got the Michigan State hockey media day should be coming up in a couple of weeks. Be interesting to see what they've got brewing. It's going to be interesting. We'll talk about that later. Kylan45 says, Comp getting me in trouble at work, but it's worth it. Go green. All right, Kylan, don't get in too much. Is it Kyle N? Don't get in too much trouble. We don't support that. We don't want to be part of that. I don't need to hear from parents on that one. All right, let's get to the mailbag real quick. Don't need letters from parents. Why do you have my son watching a VCast when he's supposed to be at work? Don't need to hear from parents on that one. Oh, this is not a VCast. This is SpartanMag Live. All right, where's my mailbag? Let me see if I can find it. Here it is. Question number 1. MSU Polo from Rockford, Michigan. He says, I'm curious what you're hearing about how Michigan State will fill in the spots in the playing group previously occupied by guys who now have long-term injuries. By the way, these questions were posted over at the Underground Bunker message board over at SpartanMag.com. The Underground Bunker message board is the church of what's happening now with Michigan State sports, the church of what's happening now for Michigan State sports. It is the daily narrative on Michigan State sports. And over there, we talk Michigan State sports, Michigan State football, recruiting, all that stuff all the time, all hours of the night, message board. It's fun. And over there, I invite Michigan State fans to post questions, mailbag style, and we read those questions here. All right, so as far as the injuries go, of course, Dylan Tatum was the first safety off the bench. And we just talked about that with Ron Armstrong, that last week against Maryland, there was no next safety off the bench. It was Spencer and Martinez playing the whole game. Now, Angelo Gross can play safety. He's mostly a nickelback in passing situations. First game against FAU, Gross did play some safety to make room for Avion Gross to come in and play some nickelback, as Michigan State was dealing with a lot of injuries and an ejection that day. Ideally, it looks like they would rather, I don't know in the future whether they rotate Gross back there a little bit to give Spencer and or Martinez a blow here and there. Maybe that's in the cards. He can do that. Did not do that against Maryland. When Gross went to the bench, Snow came in for the Sam linebacker look against 2 tight end sets. But those 2 safeties, Martinez, Spencer, played the whole game. And they played well, but like we said, not ideal based on what the coaches have already said and established, which is they'd like to play more players. So can they get more players ready? Armorion Smith has not played yet. He was the first safety off the bench last fall. Played more than 40 snaps last year against Maryland, but went down with an injury in that game, missed the rest of the season. And he was out in the spring and, of course, went through the tragic, unfortunate passing of his mother due to cancer 2 weeks ago, which it looks like the players and coaches have really rallied around Armorion Smith on that, which is great to see, as has the Michigan State community with support for his family's GoFundMe page. His mother is a mother of 5, I think, or 6. And Armorion, I think, is the oldest. So, a lot of leadership falling on that young man's shoulders right now. So, not sure what it's going to look like when he gets on the field. This weekend would be a good weekend for him to get on the field, see what it looks like, see what the speed looks like, communication, and so forth. So, you're asking, with the injuries, who's going to get on the field? Armorion Smith, keep an eye on him. We talked about Justin Denson, true freshman, hearing good things about him. Legend Cavazos moved from corner to safety last week because of Michigan State's injuries at the safety position. Transfer from North Carolina. Prior to that, he was at Ohio State for 1 year, I think. Maybe he redshirted a year, then he played in 2021. Played a lot of mop-up time that year. Had over 100 snaps as a corner for Ohio State that year. The next year played at North Carolina. I think it was a spot starter late in the year. or maybe that one of the 2 years at North Carolina he was injured. Transferred to Michigan State, former 4-star. So I'm curious to see what he's going to look like. He was Michigan State's biggest corner. He's about 6'1", 210. Big corner, moving to safety. Now that Michigan State has injuries at corner, with Chance Rucker going out with an arm injury until at least November, does Cavazos move back to corner? Do they keep him cross-trained at both positions? Remains to be seen, and we might see a glimpse of that this weekend. Regardless of what's on the scoreboard, I'm watching it. If it does get away, which a lot of people think, and all due respect to Prairie View, but if the score gets away and it becomes 31-0 or something like that, I want to see Cavazos. I want to see Denson. I want to see some of these second stringers who are going to be tapped on their shoulder to play at some point this season, especially that safety position like you're talking about due to the injuries. Also at corner, Brinson, the true freshman. Also Keyshawn Williams, true freshman. Do they get on the field? Jeremiah Hughes. Does Ed Woods, Ed Woods was banged up a little bit last week. Maybe this is a good week to put him on the shelf, let him recover a little bit more. And you start Jeremiah Hughes, who came in and played about 20, 25 snaps, did pretty good, transfer from LSU, true sophomore. So you're asking me who's going to be filling in for these spots. I just addressed the safety and corner position. Those are some of the names, and we should see them this weekend, which could be constructive, good for them and good for the defense, regardless of what's on the scoreboard. A lot of people are like, well, this game is not even competitive. Why should I go? Well, I just mentioned for people that are astute followers of football, there's a lot of you out there. That's what you'd be looking for, the next level player development. Alante Brown went down midway through the FAU game, which is disappointing because he was looking good. Had a nice kick return on the free kick, had a nice curl on a third down conversion, and had been hearing good things about him. A guy that had a frustrating freshman year in a lot of ways, but showed some fire in that opening night. Got hurt. Feel bad for him. So he was out of the slot. Isaiah Johnson played a lot of slot in that first game, but then coming into the second game, Montori Foster played more in the slot. Nick Marsh became one of the top 3 receivers, had a great game. Marsh was playing a lot of X, so then Glover moved from the X to the flanker. And when you have that flexibility with Foster and Glover, that made a lot of sense. And Marsh, they said, could play all 3 positions also, but they put him in the X, put him in split end, and the other 2 guys could flex out of that. Glover went down with an injury late in that game, and so Antonio Gates came in. Glover, I've not heard. They always say broadcasters shouldn't speculate, but heck, I don't know. It looked like a groin or something like that to me. Is that bad? Should I not be talking about that? I don't know. But do you sit Glover now? Give him a week off. Some of these guys that are 80% nursing something, you got to win the game. You have to give the opponent full respect and attention, like Jonathan Smith says, coach speak, but it's also true. So if you're going to give them full respect and attention, can you do that while also, putting an 80% guy on the bench? What message does that send to the rest of the players? I don't know. That's team psychology stuff that coaches can worry about, and we'll just sit here and second guess. But if you sit Glover, does Antonio Gates play more? That would be good for him and possibly good for the team. Gates has potential. He's got talent. Came in late in that game, targeted him on an out route. I think it was an out and up on the sideline, incomplete. And then was it 1st and 10 right after the third down pass interference to Marsh. The next play, shallow crossing route. I described it as a check down, but it might not have been. It might have been designed for him, and the rest of the stuff, pushed the coverage down the field, which they're very good at schematically. This group of Michigan State offensive coaches, they like to push the coverage one way and hit you back the other way, taking the top off the defense, as they say. Shallow crossing route. Gates makes a catch, protects the ball, gets about 7-8 yards, got his feet wet, played the rest of the game. So in this game, does Gates get 20, 30 snaps? I don't know. You're asking me who's playing for some of these injured guys. Do I know that Glover's going to be out? I do not know. But when you're looking for development from second and third stringers, Isaiah Johnson is Jalen Smith. We've not seen him on the field yet. Would he be next man up as a wide receiver to get on the field? Not sure. We might get some clues on who the next receivers are onto the field now that Alante Brown is out, and we'll see what happens with Glover. Christian Phillips, of course, out for the season. I think that was an ankle injury. Happened late in that Florida Atlantic game. Hate it for him because Big Dooley looked good in some aspects of that game. considering it was his first real quality playing time of his career. So he's out. Gavin Brocious, redshirt sophomore from Arizona, got the start, and it was the first time he's ever played in a college football game. Redshirted in year one. Last year he was injured, did not play against FAU. Tag, you're starting at Maryland. Your first snaps as a college football player, Big Ten game on the road. And Brocious had some decent moments and also struggled here a little bit, here and there. Jonathan Smith was not happy with the personal foul that Brocious had. It was an illegal blindside hit. It wasn't anything completely malicious. It was just knowledge and situational awareness. I think it was Nate Carter got bounced outside because of some backfield penetration, which has happened a few times too often, which they're working on. And it wasn't offensive lineman getting beat physically. It was an identification error, which has happened, and they're working on it. And Michigan State's trying to do a lot of things in the offensive line. Inside zone, outside zone, different variations of outside zone, duo, man, blocking schemes, and some other things. They have a vast Rolodex. Do people still use the word Rolodex? They're a very voluminous playbook on that offensive line. You see some teams run, inside zone, outside zone, that's it. Maybe a gap play here and there. Michigan State's doing a lot of things. And the more that you're doing with young players, they're still getting accustomed to playing with one another. The more that you do, because you're trying to establish for the long term, the more that you do with inexperienced players, the more rocket ships are gonna burn out on you and crash. They've had some rocket ships burn on some of these things. So this was another one of those plays where some misidentifications up front. Running back gets the ball, and there's a defender right on him right now, so he gets bounced, makes somebody miss. Then Carter's getting down the field, down the sideline. So Brocious is looking downfield to block somebody, and he blocks somebody in the shoulder. It wasn't like a malicious. I didn't think it was malicious. It was an aggressive play, but Smith was not happy about it. He came out of the game. Fincher went in. But Brocious, in other ways, did not look outclassed at all. We've seen Fincher play as a starting center in the past. Last year when Samac was injured, Fincher's a functional college football player, and Brocious beat him out for that starting job. So Brocious is capable, and he's a young man with the ceiling of potential that he's still climbing toward. And remember, this is the first college football game he had ever played. Fincher goes in, and Fincher also started the second half, and Fincher also ended the game. So if I were to put out an unofficial depth chart right now, I think I've got Fincher at right guard. But do you go ahead and start Brocious anyway because he's the future? Against Prairie View, I think you do. You say, okay, young man, you got it again. Tag, you're it again. You're starting again. Even though you didn't start the second half, even though you didn't finish the game, you're starting again because, like they always say, for a team, the most improvement comes between week 1 and week 2. And that's true of a player also. And for him, week 1 and week 2 is actually week 2 and week 3 because he didn't play in week 1. So Brocious is still there at right guard. I don't know who... So that creates some questions at left guard. I was watching pregame closely on Saturday. Posted this at the bunker during pregame, 20 minutes before kickoff. I'm watching, and Rustin Young, true freshman from Hawaii, right? He was repping as the second string left guard. Rakeem Johnson, true freshman from Idaho, repping as first string right tackle. That was true of Rakeem Johnson in the FAU game. So people that were paying close attention to our message board and our tweets and so forth knew that about Rakeem Johnson. I did not know that about Rustin Young. So that's probably a good sign that he's coming along quickly. Now, Young and Rakeem Johnson did not play in spring practice. They've been on campus for a month and a half, and they're second string. I kind of expected one of the Lunieski or both of the Lunieski twins to be tackle and guards because they looked pretty good in the spring. I don't know if they've had some setbacks or what, but... I don't remember. I'll have to look for them in pregame on Saturday. Not that I'm going to go out and report when there's injuries, but I guess now in the Big Ten, you have to say who's on the out list, and they've not been on the unable to perform list. So I don't know what's going on with the Lunieskis. I thought they had a good, constructive spring. I thought they looked pretty good in the spring scrimmage. So anyway, Rustin Young, he's one of the people when you're asking who are replacing some of these people that were injured. with Phillips out, of course, Broch is his first man in, and Fincher's over there. But Fincher could also have played backup guard or center. But Rustin Young is a guy that's into the two deep with Phillips out, even though he's not in the playing group. And with Chance Rucker being out, we just talked about that. Brantley and Ed Woods. Woods banged up a little bit. Do you sit him a little bit? Get Hughes in there. Get Ade Willie some more time. Because like I said, Ade Willie, when we're talking about with Ron Armstrong, press coverage, first snap in the second half, and I think it was an automatic check for Maryland. Oh, you're going to play press coverage on Felton with number 6, the backup corner who made that mistake last week against FAU? Okay, we're checking. Go deep. Boom. 35 yards. But Ade Willie in press coverage flipped his hips and ran with him hip to hip. Covered him pretty good. Just a perfect throw. Gave up a 35-yarder. But like we talked about earlier, I thought Ade Willie showed some progress right there. So against Prairie View, get Ade Willie out there a little bit more. Get him, see if there's some more progress there. He struggled in the spring scrimmage. They moved him to safety, I heard, but showed up back at corner at the beginning of this season. Was in the playing group against FAU, made some mistakes. Get him back out there in the field. If you have to sit Woods and keep him in the refrigerator a little bit, if he's a little banged up from last week, go with Brantley, go with Hughes, go with Ade Willie. Get through it. If he makes some mistakes, learn from him. True freshmen like Keyshawn Williams and Brinson, can you get them on the field? Play one game. Can still preserve redshirt status for later. Although by the time those guys are seniors, the redshirt rule might be gone and everybody gets 5 years of eligibility. I don't know because the rules change every 10 days. All right, question 2, Mike from Granville says, it seems to the untrained eye that receivers are now getting separation, something that has not happened in past years. Could you explain what Michigan State is doing differently now? Great question. Great point. Like we talked about with Ron, first of all, Florida Atlantic has good corners. That's the best part of their team. They've got Big Ten level corners. The one guy, what's his name, Bugs or whatever, a lot of people think he's an NFL guy. And they played press on Michigan State's receivers, and they had trouble getting open. And the same pageness between quarterback and receiver was not great in game number 1, nor was accuracy in some regards. So why were they more open against Maryland? First of all, Florida Atlantic has better defensive backs than Maryland right now. Secondly, Florida Atlantic played press. Michigan State was having a little trouble getting off press a little bit here and there. Maryland played more off coverages. Michigan State with free releases it was just more comfortable. But not only were they open, but Michigan State repeatedly had people open, especially second level, some drags and over routes. And then against, hitches, guys were getting open and had people open all day, deep. It was kind of, I don't want to say shocking, but it was noteworthy. It's like, man, they got people open all day. And Childs threw for 360 yards or whatever it was. A couple of fine-tuned adjustments here and there. He's throwing for more than 400. It wouldn't have taken much for him to throw for more than 400. They were out there. So a lot of it was the opponent. But Courtney Hawkins, wide receivers coach, was asked about it after practice on Tuesday. What was the difference? And one of his quotes was, quote, in week 1, there were some big-time errors, unquote. In week 1, there were some big-time errors. Didn't expand on what they were. Was it quarterback decisions or routes not being run properly? I'm not sure. But you talk about most improvement between week 1 and week 2, look no further than the wide receiver position for examples of that. Not sure why. I don't have all the specific micro regions on the why, but you're right, it was different. Now, you'd expect more of the same this weekend. Then week 4 against Boston College, then it's showtime to try to get to 4-0, and we'll see what it looks like at that point. Question number 3, Anton in Waterford says, lose the turnover battle, commit 10 penalties, but win a Big Ten game on the road against a decent opponent. What does that say about this team in your opinion? Question from Anton from Waterford. What does that say? The coaches talk about resiliency, and that's kind of coach speak stuff, but that's what coaches are looking for. They were happy to see that. I mean, Michigan State, there were a lot of plays in that game that you remember that if that would have happened to Michigan State in the 2 of the previous 3 years or 3 of the previous 4 years, Michigan State would have, I'm not going to say would have laid down because effort was always good, but they would have come apart a little bit and not made those plays on 3rd and short. There's just, I know it's just 2 games in and they had a terrible season last year and it's a lot of new players, but maybe it's my imagination, but I sensed a mental edge for Michigan State over Maryland on Saturday. Maybe Maryland, sometimes when you blow out a team 2 straight years and the coaching staff is trying to get you to respect this opponent coming to your stadium, seen it a lot with groups of 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds. Is it true that a Maryland would overlook a Michigan State? Maybe not overlook them, but did they have the intensity and the urgency and the focus that Michigan State had and determination? I think maybe not. And Maryland marching down the field and going up 7-0, the 7 points were good, but that might not have done Maryland's coaches a lot of favors either, because for some people there's a human response to take the foot off the gas pedal a little bit, the urgency and the focus. Michigan State's focus, 60 minutes, it's a cliche, but they had it. That's what it tells me about that game, first of all. Secondly, it tells me if you fix the turnover problem and the penalty problem and Childs gets it tuned in a little bit more, how good can Michigan State be? Meanwhile, you look at that schedule, in July, you're looking at that schedule like, man, Michigan's going to be good. Oregon's going to be really good. You're not going to win that game. Well, Boise State basically went out there and beat Oregon last weekend, but they lost the game on 2 kick returns. Idaho had Oregon on the ropes. Oregon probably will get it figured out, but right now, as of now, Oregon's getting pushed around on the line of scrimmage, both sides of the ball. Wouldn't have thought that in July, but if Childs continues to come around, offensive line gets their crap together a little bit better, that's a winnable game, the way it looks right now. Would not have thought that in July. Iowa, losing that game to Iowa State, looked good for about 3 quarters. But whatever's going on with Iowa's offense, I've not studied that game yet. But Iowa coming to East Lansing, I don't know. Meanwhile, the game at Boston College looks more difficult. Boston College with a big win over Florida State. How good's Florida State? We don't know. Boston College went out and blew out Duquesne. I didn't know Duquesne had a football team. I thought it was a basketball school. Now, Boston College goes to Missouri this weekend. And Missouri's a good top 10 team. And they're really making a push to have one of their better seasons because the door's kind of open in the SEC a little bit with Alabama going through some changes. Florida with their problems. Arkansas, their problems. A&M trying to reestablish their footing. Kentucky just got blown out by South Carolina. South Carolina did not look good against Old Dominion. Mississippi State loses to Arizona State. LSU loses to who they lose to? USC. The SEC right now is the weakest it's been in a number of years. Georgia's great. Probably going to win the national title. Probably, we don't know. But going into the football season, what we're learning, in my opinion, in the portal era is we always, in June, I always say, I don't know what these teams have. People would ask me, how do you think Michigan State's going to do this year? Who's going to win the game opener against whoever? I'm like, I don't know. I've never seen either team play yet, which is kind of a wise guy answer that I give. But you're asking me in June, what's going to happen in the Michigan State-Rutgers game in November? I don't know. I've not seen either team play yet. But in college football, it's the nature of the beast. It's talking season. And you only play 12 games a year. So you spend 355 days, 354 days the rest of the year talking about games. And you only play games on 12 days of the year plus postseason. So might as well talk in June. But we don't know what we don't know in June. We thought we knew what Oregon was. Turns out we didn't. We thought we knew what Florida State was. Didn't. We thought we knew what what USC was. USC might be better. And even after one game, we thought Notre Dame was good after they beat A&M. So, I mean, the last 10, 15 years in college football, there's always been one preseason top 10 team that ends up outside of the top 25. I think in the portal era, with the revolving door of important parts, I think even more so that's the case. Now, some of the better teams, the real heavyweights like Georgia and Michigan last year, some of those heavyweights that have been able to plug in 2 or 3 players here and go from great to very great, that's happening. But the portal is also leveling the playing field a little bit more. I think teams ranked 5 to 50. Northern Illinois, listening to Hammock, their coach, or the athletic director on a talk show I heard this week, they had something like 26 seniors back this year and 18 returning starters. I didn't know that. Watch out. Be careful of that. If it's a MAC team that's any kind of good, that has that type of experience coming back against some of these other teams with revolving doors, look out. A lot of people thought that the portal was going to weaken the MAC teams. And it does weaken them in some ways because players do move on. They achieve a level of success in the MAC and they move on. I said in the pre-snap read last week, Maryland had a corner named Husky was his last name, number 22. All-MAC, first-team All-MAC at Kent State, I think, or Bowling Green, transfers to Maryland. And I'm always a guy that's like, hey, give me an all group of 5 conference, all-conference guy at that level, bring him up. I'm that guy. But then this guy looked good on paper. Then I watched that game. Maryland against whoever it was they played in their first game, UConn. And this guy, number 22, did not look good. His hip turn didn't look that great. His closing speed was not. I'm like, I don't know about that guy. And I wrote about that in the pre-snap read, and Michigan State attacked him, number 22. Now, he had that one interception. They went deep, and Childs just sailed it out at the sideline too far, and he got an interception. But Michigan State attacked that guy. The 2 guys that I said were kind of questionable, their center and that guy, and Michigan State attacked both of them. They attacked that center on that blitz, that run blitz, on that 3rd-and-1 stoppage with 3 minutes to go. We got the film of that over at the Underground Bunker message board. So the pre-snap read, even though it was just one game in, I was pretty pleased that we had a pretty good scout going on there for that game, for those of you that read it over at SpartanMag.com. Become a subscriber. Check it out. You might like it. I'm going to try to watch some Prairie View stuff tonight. I got a lot of other work to do. And I don't know. I don't know if I'll be able to find Prairie View video anywhere. Anyway, what was I talking about? So now we didn't know what we didn't know, but the defense is further along than I expected. Childs was coming along nicely. You're seeing him look up, freeze some safeties and come over here a little bit more. Marsh is what we thought he was, right? Foster's going to be okay. Velling is still going to come around. Parachek missed a block at tight end last week, played 2 snaps. Smith said on his radio show last night, Parachek's going to come around. You're going to see more of him. Masunas got open for what could have been a touchdown if the ball's on him, but does he catch it if it's on him? I don't know. Offensive line, can it come around? Can the defense stay healthy? Michigan State's already better than a lot of people expected. I thought it was possible, but I wasn't betting on it. If that defense can stay healthy, continue to come around, the offensive line comes around, run game gets going, Childs tightens the screws a little bit. Can you win at Boston College? Can you beat Iowa? Can you win at Michigan or at Oregon? Not impossible now. November's looking harder because Illinois upsets Kansas. They're looking a little bit better than we expected. Indiana's been blowing everybody out. Kurt Cignetti, the new coach at Indiana, he's the Morton Downey Jr. of college football. If you don't know who Morton Downey Jr. is, good for you. But Indiana's looking, they had 10 transfers come in from James Madison, who was a very good team last year. I've not watched them play yet, but the scores have been impressive. Rutgers is going to be good. They're going to come in here with like a 9-2 record or something like that, I'm guessing. Defense is good. Run game is good. Monange, good running back. They're a little bit better at quarterback. So Rutgers, Rutgers is going to be a little bit better than Michigan State right now. And by then, Rutgers is going to be flying so high. It's stopping that. I'm not going to call it a train, but November's looking a little bit harder than I expected. And the middle 4 games are not as daunting as I thought. However, it's not a middle 4 games anymore. It's a middle 5 games because Boston College is better than we thought they were going to be. So what do we know in June? Nothing. In terms of trying to figure out what the schedule is. So question 5. Jim, who covers Shamar Savage? He's the big wide receiver for Prairie View. Who posted this? I want to give him credit because it's a good question. He did some research on this. I'm going to look it up right now to see who posted this. I'm going through the Underground Bunker right now. Where is that? I thought I'd be able to find it because he posted a nice little. Here it is. It's Desert Sparty from Arizona. He says, who covers Shamar Savage? Desert Sparty says, looks like he's a big body wide receiver, upperclassman, 6'4", 220, who put up some impressive numbers so far this year. 12 catches, 238 yards, 19.8 yards per catch for this 6'4" guy. 6 catches for 133 yards against Northwestern State, 6 catches, 105 yards against Texas Southern. I watched a couple highlights last night of him against Southern, I think it was, from last season. Big guy at 6'4", and he's not slow getting off the field. I think he's from California. He's not from Texas. Prairie View's from Texas. For a big guy, he gets off the line of scrimmage quickly. I've not seen his route running a whole lot in the catch radius. The numbers look good. When you do some searches, you see a little bit about NFL possibilities for him. Reminds me a little bit of that big receiver that Michigan State had, who had a touchdown, I think, in 2020, COVID year against Penn State. Transferred, I think, to Memphis. I don't know if we ever heard from him again. What was his name? But this guy's a big receiver, but I think a little more fluid than that guy. That's good radio. That guy. I don't have a name for the guy. But Savage, hey, good quality receiver, and he's asking me who covers Savage. Well, I don't think Michigan State right now is a situation where they've got one cover corner that they would put on somebody. Brantley's the best cover corner right now, but at 5'10", smallish guy, he's not like a natural matchup for Savage, I wouldn't think. Ed Woods was the boundary corner, and then he got beat deep on the opening drive. They pulled him out, and they put Rucker in, and then Brantley became the boundary corner. So Michigan State will go boundary and field corner. They'll go right and left. They mix that up a little bit. So Savage will be all over the field. So I think Michigan State just gets set boundary corner, field corner, and they'll just keep their corners there. But if they put Savage on Brantley and they start having success with it, then maybe Michigan State switches things up. If there's a problem, they might try something else. But I think Michigan State just shows up doing what they do, which I think will be, do you sit Woods? I don't know if he's available or not. If Woods is available, you put Woods on the boundary and Brantley in the field like you did last week and just play your stuff. If you want to sit Woods and you put Hughes in for his first college start, sophomore, transfer from LSU, hey, go get it, young man. So, let me see. A lot of new names in this program, eh? That's me speaking Canadian, sorry. So Jeremiah Hughes comes in. Like I said, he's a true sophomore. A little bit bigger of a guy. Just had to look it up. 6 foot 200. He's got more size than Brantley. So you put Hughes on the boundary, start him there, and wherever they want to put Savage, whatever. And if you start having a problem, do you put Hughes on him all over the field? Maybe. So that's a game within the game worth watching because that kid is good enough. I don't think there's going to be huge problems on the scoreboard, but that'll be good. That'll be a good little quiz, good little test. Then can Prairie View protect against Michigan State's pass rushers? Does Ken Talley and Bogle and these guys get free a little bit? That could be a problem for them. Question 6, Mullen Labe from Gladwin says, Jim, can you talk specifically about what you are most excited about with Jonathan Smith and this program thus far? He says, I think there's a lot to like. That's what Mullen Labe says out of Gladwin. I just talk about the organization, the dedication of physicality. I think Michigan State people can see that and respect that and know that that's what this program's been in the past, and that's what they want to do in the run game. But on defense, you're also seeing physicality also. Joe Rossi, he had that at Minnesota, Big Ten defensive coordinator, and that's a big part of helping Michigan State get out to a quick start this year. And it's part of what would make me excited about the program going forward. Jonathan Smith and these guys did a good job at Oregon State. And there's two things that are different initially. They get to Michigan State, and all these assistant coaches have all said, man, there's a lot of good players around here just within a drivable radius. Like Blue Adams said, what's the difference? Well, come out here. You want to go recruiting, just put some gas in the gas tank and drive there. When they were at Oregon State, they had to fly everywhere. There were very few players within a drivable radius. I'm not saying state of Michigan in the Midwest, it's not South Florida, it's not Texas, but there's talent around here, more than they had there. So they're excited about that. By the same token, the schedule and the conference theoretically is more difficult. Last year, the Pac-12 was very good. They had been down in previous years, but last year they were really good and deep. But the Big Ten is pretty strong, as everybody knows. So whereas the recruiting radius excites these coaches, the schedule over the long term is more difficult also. So you've got more material, but the task is a little more difficult. But they've been excited about the players they have access to. They're excited about that. I got to tell you, they got some offensive linemen visiting this weekend. There's a kid from Ohio coming up, a 4-star. He's got an Ohio State offer. He's a top 100 guy. It's going to be tough to get him, but he's coming up to check it out. And then the Nichols kid, really good player from Davis in high school. This is a 2026 guy. I remember seeing him at Michigan State's camp 2 summers ago, and I was like, who's the 24-year-old NFL player right there? And he was like just going into 10th grade. And he moved well, and I remember telling Jake Laskawa, who does a great job writing for us at SpartanMag.com, I said, sometimes when you're at these camps, you can just see, like, that's what they look like. When you've covered Michigan State, you've covered college football for a long time, like I have for more than 30 years, you've seen literally thousands of scholarship football players on the practice field and at camps, and passing the eye test, you can see that's what they look like. That guy does not look like one. That guy does. That guy doesn't. Those 5 guys don't, but that one does. They stand out. And then when you see what they look like, eye test, then you watch them move around, and some guys can't move. Okay, forget him. But there's some exceptions. But this guy, Nichols, I remember talking to Jake that day, and I'm like, that's what they look like right there. And I found out that guy's a 9th grader. All right, so Nichols, let me see if I can find this. Max Riley's the kid who's going to be visiting from Ohio. Ben Nichols, Davidson High School, 6'5", 315, ranked the number 3 player in the state of Michigan for 2026. Number 195 player in the country. And he's going to be visiting this weekend. Now, Nichols, and then there's the Patrick kid, good player out of Portage, who has gone to Notre Dame and liked it there. Nichols, Michigan was regarded as the team to beat for family reasons and other reasons, and for obvious reasons. Michigan just went 15-0 last year. New coaching staff. Now, some of those, some bad press. It's kind of bad press. They've had a lot of bad press. But when it came out that Sharon Moore did not have a contract, what does that say? And then it becomes public, and then it seemed reactionary to me that they went ahead and got him a contract. But I think I heard the contract's only $500,000. I've not verified that, but if his contract is actually $500,000, what does that tell you? That tells you Michigan is worried about a hammer coming down. That's the only thing that can mean. They're not committed to Sharon Moore. And Sharon Moore was a fine offensive line coach for Michigan. Seems like a good guy, but doesn't seem like they're committed to him. So if you're an in-state offensive lineman who dreamed of playing for Michigan, maybe that's where you've always been leaning. But the first 2 weeks have not looked good for Michigan, not only on the field, but that stuff does not look good in terms of longevity. Who's going to be your coach? You open your living room to someone like Jonathan Smith and Jim Michalczyk, and what Michalczyk's done in terms of producing NFL players. And I know that Sharon Moore has as well, but Sharon Moore, how much involvement does he have on the offensive line now? I don't know. But whereas 18 months ago it might have seemed monumental to try to beat out Michigan for a kid like Nichols, but now things can happen. Things can change quickly in college football, and Michigan State's on the rise, and Michigan's not. I mean, I don't say things like that often, but there's dark clouds coming into Michigan right now. Maybe they'll get it stabilized, and maybe they won't get much of a penalty. Maybe everything will be great, and they'll go ahead and win 10 games this year, and everything will be fine, and he'll get a new contract, and everything will just go. But right now, that contract, if you look at that, well, that kid Nichols is visiting Michigan State this weekend, and Michigan State's going to look impressive this weekend. You've been to Michigan State. It's a beautiful campus. Stadium's going to be pretty lively. The facilities are great. I'm not here to try to do a recruiting pitch, but there's a lot of reasons why someone who grew up a Michigan fan might get things changed a little bit right now. So that kid's coming to visit, and if Smith pitches academics, and he's a former walk-on. He's genuine about it. And Michigan, they talk academics too, but you commit to Michigan, and all those guys end up being, they major in eligibility. Most of them. They say, they show you the business program, which is number 1 in the country among public schools. Being a business major at Michigan is great. And they show it to them. Yeah, come here, be a business major. Sounds good. You get there and you want to major in business. And they from what I hear, they're like, no, you're not majoring in business. You're going to major in eligibility, or whatever they call eligibility now. That's just the way it is. Just look at the majors in that program. Harbaugh used to say that when he was head coach at Stanford. He made fun of Lloyd Carr's program. It's been that way for a long time. So if you're serious about academics, Michigan State, like D'Antonio used to say, you can major in something that is a meaningful major, as D'Antonio would say. I'm not plugging it. I'm not trying to recruit for Michigan State. I'm saying these are where the pitches have been in the past when Michigan State has had success recruiting against Michigan, which is not easy. But right now, if Michigan gets a little bit shaky, someone like Nichols could open up to Michigan State. I don't know. How'd I get talking about that? That's what I think. If that makes Michigan fans angry, I apologize. Michigan's a great school. Everybody knows that. And hey, the hospital provides a great service to citizens of the state of Michigan. Great university. So I'm just talking about recruiting dynamics. That's all. So when you're asking me what would make people the most excited about the Jonathan Smith-led program, the recruiting radius they're excited about, and they're excited about trying to get in on some of those guys increasingly. We'll see where that goes. Joe Rossi, this is the other thing. Joe Rossi as defensive coordinator is better than the defensive coordinator they had at Oregon State. I remember watching Oregon State last year a couple times, like the loss to Washington State. And I was like, man, that defense is leaky. It's kind of like you score, we score, you score, we mess up, you score, we score, we mess up on defense, they score. It's okay, we're going to score. I'm like, man, that doesn't fit. And then that defense coordinator's head coach at Oregon State this weekend. Maybe they'll beat the Ducks. They play Oregon this weekend. Good luck to them. I don't mean to be disrespectful to them in that outfit, but Jonathan Smith goes out and gets, in my opinion, the best defensive coordinator in the Big Ten that was available to him. Now, Phil Parker, former Spartan, what is he, 61 years old? There's a lot of Michigan State fans that would have loved to see him make the jump back home to Michigan State. I don't know if he was available or not. I don't know if there were discussions there or not. You heard some things about that. But Rossi was next up, if not the best defensive coordinator available. I mean, you're not going to go get Michigan's coordinator. You're not going to go get, he went with Harbaugh to the NFL. You're not going to get Penn State's, or Ohio State's. But the best coordinator available in the Big Ten, someone who has Big Ten knowledge, not only for recruiting, but within the conference and what you need to do to win in the Big Ten, was Joe Rossi. And that was kind of a low-key major hire for Michigan State. Jonathan Smith and all of the good things they did at Oregon State as a program, offensively, organizationally. Then you add that, which is an upgrade from what they had. You're asking me what would make me the most excited about a Jonathan Smith-led program? That. Because I talked about Minnesota's defense back then. I wrote about it in the pre-snap read. I've talked about this a few times. 2022, Michigan State was coming off the top 10 year. In 2021, the Peach Bowl year. Michigan State goes out to Washington. They were semi-blown out. Washington was very good. And I warned people about that too. That was before people realized what Penix was all about. And they had played, I can't remember who I think Washington had played Indiana maybe. No, because he played at Indiana. They'd played somebody. And I wrote in the pre-snap read, I'm like, the Penix you remember at Indiana? Well, he's 10 times better now. And turned out to be true. I'm like, this Washington game is scary. And people didn't really realize it at the time that Washington was becoming very good. Pre-snap read had it, though. Then the next week, Michigan State's coming home to play Minnesota. Michigan State was preseason top 20. And I watched Minnesota against somebody, and that defense looked like an Iowa defense. Not identical schematically, but 11 guys playing with one brain, arriving with leverage, defeating blocks, and rallying to the ball, not from 10 yards away, but they're always like within 5 yards, just making reads, making breaks, defeating tackles, good safety, good middle linebacker, never out of position. I was like, that's a defense that has their crap together. Minnesota. I said it in 2022. I said, this is going to be a difficult game. And I don't do predictions, but I kind of hint toward forecasts. And a lot of readers told me I was crazy. They're like, Minnesota State's going to kill Minnesota. I'm like, dude. And then Minnesota went out and won 31-6 or something like that. That was the first time that it hit me that Minnesota's defense was excellent. And I might have looked up to see who the coordinator was then for the article. And then at my age, I just kind of forgot who it was. And then when Rossi became coordinator, I was like, geez, I get it. And then here in a short amount of time, they played some really sound defense. Now, I know they've got better opponents coming up, but Maryland's offense is a pretty good, respectable Big Ten offense. Last 2 years, they were top 4 in the Big Ten. I realize they don't have Tagovailoa anymore, but Edwards is good. And Michigan State contained him. Now, he missed early on, but he doesn't miss those very often. Defense, depth, on the same page, physicality, run fits, gap responsibility, gap integrity, leverage to the ball. All those things are good. Now, Ohio State's still going to go for 550 or more, like I said. But you're asking me what's to like about Jonathan Smith? Everything they did in the past. Now there's a better recruiting radius, which they're excited about, and Joe Rossi. Fourthly, the intangibles that Smith naturally gives a lot of attention to as a former walk-on, maybe that's part of it. But also it feeds into team success. But he came in and right away he wanted these players to know each other well and had a lot of tests and quizzes and things that they used to make sure that these new teammates got to know each other better. He's big on the camaraderie. And there's veterans on this team that have been in the program for 5 years, sometimes some of them 6 years, that say it's better than it's ever been, and it's something that was lacking before. I think when Tucker first got here, I think there was some of that. Well, there was COVID right away, so they couldn't get to know each other. And then it was good in 2021 when they had the big season. And then things kind of got off the rails a little bit in a lot of ways, as did communication from top to bottom. So a lot of the veterans were kind of thirsty for more of a team concept. What happened? More team camaraderie, team concept. And Smith has come in and believes in that wholly. And from what I can tell, he's got a genuine personality about that. Now, people like Nick Saban talk about that also. You know, we want to have camaraderie and all those things. And Saban had a lot of wins, but when he was at Michigan State, you know, sometimes he lost his players and they'd get blown out. The players would quit on him. They would. So he probably learned from that as he went along and got better talent as he went along. But Smith does things to get that camaraderie, to improve it, and to nurture it, and to bring it along. And I think that's something Michigan State needs long-term to get everything they can out of their resources. But secondly, in the short term for this team and all the new players, that's worked. Other things, I mean, I think the academic piece, I don't think it's lip service with Smith. As a former walk-on, he's serious about academics. And in this day and age of the portal and people, you know, moving programs all over the place, it's going to be harder for players to get meaningful degrees. And you can't keep players from moving on. But, you know, he talks the academic piece, even though that's not, it's not talked about as much. You hear in recruiting circles, one of the first things that players want to talk about is NIL. But that money for freshmen is now going to start going toward players to retain players to go into the portal. There's going to be less money for recruits. So I think you might see recruiting revert back to more old-fashioned recruiting. No, we don't have a lot of money for you, but you're our type of guy. You come here, you can become a starter, you can get money later, and you're going to love our program so much you're not going to want to leave. That's a theory. Can you do it in practice? I think Smith is a guy that can make that happen. Stanton Ramil had an interesting quote yesterday. Redshirt freshman, nice-looking left tackle. Would not be surprised to see him in the starting lineup here pretty soon. I've not heard that. I just think he's heading in that direction. And I think Baldwin could end up at the right tackle, bouncing back and forth to get some depth. I have not heard that. I'm just observing. Ramil was asked, that's a guy from Alabama, came to Michigan State. He was asked why he stuck with the program. And among other things, he looked at the guys at Oregon State and researched it. And he found that Oregon State had fewer players going into the portal than most other teams. They ranked among the best in the country in terms of player retention, players not seeking to leave the program. He thought that was a good sign that players there wanted to stay. So far, he seems to really be liking it. So I don't think it's lip service. I think Smith has some genuine aspects that make players and coaches want to be around him. Chad Wilt, the Rush Ends coach, he talked about when Jonathan Smith asked him to become part of the assistant coaching staff at Michigan State. He's formerly a Joe Rossi guy, Wilt was. And Wilt says that he didn't know Jonathan Smith, but he spoke with Jonathan Smith. One of the conversations, he put Jonathan Smith on speakerphone. He and his wife were speaking with Smith. And after the phone conversation was over, Chad Wilt's wife says, yes, that's a coach you're going to want to coach for. So, you know, every coach is a salesman at some point. I mean, Nick Saban can turn on charm like nobody's business, right? But with Smith, it seems, but in all angles, it seems pretty genuine. So that's good for the program, too, if you're asking me why a Michigan State fan would be excited about it. So there's a lot of things there. Also, just he's interested in honoring past traditions, which he's still learning about, past players, past traditions, uniforms, the grass. He likes natural grass, which I like. Just as an observer of college football, I like to watch college football on grass. They do it over here 6 or 7 times a year at Spartan Stadium. That's great. Too much turf in this sport these days. So anyway, these are some long answers. We got to wrap this thing up. Question 7, Chris in South Lyon says, Jim, what are your thoughts on Darius Snow? How is he able to be productive based on the severity of his injury? He's quicker than he was in the spring. And, good for him making a long trek back from serious lower body injury. People told him his career might be over. People told him it likely was over. He kept battling. Credit to Mel Tucker, because right after that injury, Tucker said, don't let anyone tell you that you can't make it all the way back. And Darius Snow has a lot of Eric Snow in him and a lot of Percy Snow in him. Battled. Last year, what did he miss? The last 5 or 6 games? And he put out a tweet that made it sound like he was retiring. Then he entered the portal. Then he came out of the portal, went back to work. Spring practice, 10 or 12 pounds too heavy, looked slow. I was like, it's not going to work out. We talked to him again in July, and he'd lost some weight, and he said he was close to getting back to good speed. Did he say full speed? I don't know. But again, I needed to see it to believe it. And I was not forecasting him to be part of the playing group based on what I saw in the spring. But he's quicker, and he's out there, and he's part of the playing group, and he's playing with physicality and smarts. And when the other team has 2 tight ends on the field, he's on the field as a Sam linebacker. And he's playing good football. So how's he able to do it? Man, he's got a lot of tenacity, will, lost some weight, put that all in there with that will and the knowledge and smarts. It's working out pretty well. I'm not sure he's a guy that can play 60 snaps for you every single week, but good for him. He's made it back, and a great personality for the program, I would say. So the positives from Darius Snow run deeper than just what he's doing on the field. Question 8, Sparty from Pawleys Island, South Carolina, says, hey, Jim, any updates on the status of Amarion Smith and Legend Cavazos? With the thin defensive backfield going on, we're going to need all hands on deck. Obviously, with all respect to Amarion and his comeback when he's ready, he says. Yeah, we talked about that already, so we'll just move on. And if you're just tuning in, we talked about that earlier. You can go check that out. Basically, Amarion Smith's not been on the field yet. Had a family situation. His mother passed away tragically, sadly, of cancer a couple weeks ago. So he's missed some time. I'm curious to see what Smith looks like also, because they need some more depth there at the safety position with some of the injuries they've had. So they kind of need him. What's he going to look like? I don't know. If I'm a Michigan State fan, if I'm a coach, I'd like to see him this weekend if he's healthy and ready to go, because they need a guy like that that's been on the field. And he's a guy that's still trying to get his footing as a college football regular. Last year played 4 games, was lost for the season, did not play in the spring. So I don't have an update on his status, whether he'll play this weekend. When the coaches have been asked about it, they said, they're like, he's coming along when they didn't come out and say this, but my guess is you can't miss practices. And I'm not saying he has, because Blue Adams talks about Amarion Smith and how he showed up and he's still dedicated and doing all the things. So I'm not sure how much Amarion has missed, but he's got a lot on his plate and a lot on his shoulders. So we'll see what that looks like. And a lot of Michigan State fans are wishing him well, that's for sure. We're going to go ahead and close it down now. We've been going for an hour and 40 minutes. That's enough on a Thursday afternoon. We appreciate everybody checking in. Let me go through the comments here real quick, make sure I'm not missing out on something I need to see. In the meantime, we want to invite you to go over to SpartanMag.com, become a subscriber. Consider becoming a subscriber. Got new subscribers over there all the time, and it's great to have you over there, for sure. And also, check out the, give us a like here on the channel. Subscribe to our channel here. I'm looking for the comments section. I can't find it on my screen, y'all. I'm not going to lie to you. Where is it? There it is. All right. Let me just zoom through here real quick. MSU Detroit fan says, who has a larger upside, Nick Marsh or Aiden Childs? I think Marsh he's only played 2 games, but I think he's closer to his ceiling right now than Childs is. I think Childs has a little bit more. They have a chance to really be a great tandem going forward. As far as Nick Marsh, when is the last time a true freshman has had that kind of an impact on a game in his first Big Ten game? I've got someone in mind. We'll see if anyone guesses the answer there. In the meantime, I should have done this earlier. All right, yeah. Tell me a true freshman in his first Big Ten game who had an impact, who had as much impact as Nicholas Marsh did, or close to it. See if you can come up with who I'm thinking of. All right. Also, just a few years ago, the state of Michigan ranked first in the nation for deposit container recycling. 90% of all purchased bottles and cans were being redeemed for their deposits. Today, only 73% are being redeemed. That means Michiganders are forfeiting $105 million every year in bottle and can deposits that are not being returned. This deficit is having a negative impact on our environment here in the state of Michigan. When Michigan's recycling rate drops, it hurts the environment, it hurts industry, and it hurts everybody. Help the environment, help your state, help yourself. Take them back. Take the bottles and cans back. They're your lakes, your roads, and your beaches, and it's your dime. So take them back. It's worth your time, and we will all benefit. Take them back. A message from Schupan, a great Michigan company dedicated to recycling and dedicated to the Michigan State Spartans. Over here in the comments area, I'm reading some more comments over here. MSU Detroit fan says, I really hope Jack Velling can get going against Prairie View since I would like to see him more. Whitey Sparty says, I'd like to see Tommy play. So I'm talking about Tommy Schuster, backup quarterback. I think that's possible this weekend. Whitey Sparty says, I was hoping to see more tight ends involved. You know, that I kind of hinted that was a question coming up. Let me go back over here to the mailbag. Question 11. I know we are only 2 weeks away. I can't remember who posted this. I'm sorry. We're only 2 weeks into the Childs era, and he's shown some flashes of real talent. On 97.1 today, Valenti said that the comment that he's not seen throws like that since Jeff Smoker. Who would you compare Childs to in terms of past Michigan State quarterbacks, in terms of arm talent and running capabilities? Drew Stanton, question mark? Stylistically, not like Drew Stanton. I thought Drew Stanton was a very, very good college quarterback who was stuck in a program that wasn't all that good and had a poor defense. Not his teammates individually, but the defense schematically never helped Stanton out. Arm, Tony Banks. Tony Banks came in as a junior college transfer out of California, became an NFL player. All kinds of arm, tall guy. Ironically, we saw Tony Banks at Michigan State's football camp 2 years ago. He had a son in Texas that was kind of a quarterback hopeful. But Tony Banks, all kinds of arm. Childs, really good arm. Banks might have had even a little more arm, but Banks was a couple years older. And Banks had played minor league baseball for a couple years. So when he was a junior, Tony Banks was 22 years old, I think. Childs was heading in that direction. Childs was more mobile than Banks was. Banks had okay mobility, but Childs has more. So I'd say Banks. Brett from Linwood, which is on the Saginaw Bay, Linwood, Michigan. He says, how do we get Velling more involved? So that's what we're going to get to now. They've targeted Velling here and there. You know, Velling had a real nice 23-yard grab in the game Saturday that was nullified because of illegal procedure. Ashton Lepo was not up on the line of scrimmage. Otherwise, that would have been into his stat sheet a little bit more. Now, Velling had 3 catches for 25 yards. That's a pretty good day for a tight end. Targeted 4 times, 3 catches. For a tight end, that's not bad. Would have had 4 catches for about 45 yards if that play would have stood at 48 yards. No touchdowns yet. Last year, they really featured him at Oregon State in the red zone. Now, last year at Oregon State, I think he only had like 25, 26 catches. It's not like he was catching 50 passes. But in the red zone, he was a factor. They went to him in the red zone at Maryland. He was covered, went to him, put the ball in an area where maybe Velling could have caught it. Nobody came down with it. There were times against Florida Atlantic, that interception out to the left flat that was nearly taken back for a pick six. Velling would have been the proper choice right then. I can't remember if he was covered. It was man-to-man, but give him a 50-50 ball rather than that one. Easy for me to say with the rewinder clicker, right? But you're going to see Childs get in with Velling a little bit more, especially in the red zone, I think, and third downs. Velling had a big third down reception in this game against Maryland. You're going to see it more. It's going to come around. But like I said, don't expect him to be a 50 reception guy. And like I always say, everybody wants to see the tight ends catch it more. And I stole this point from my friend Doug Karsh. His talk show back 20 years ago, I'm stealing it. If you want Velling to get the ball more, who do you want to see get the ball less? Because you can't throw it to Glover 10 times and Foster 10 times and Marsh 10 times and Velling 10 times and the running backs 10 times. You're not throwing 80 passes. You get my point. Who would you like to see get it less? That's kind of a rhetorical question. The keys to wisdom says first place in the Big Ten, exclamation point. Groove Spoon says, well, MSU Detroit fan says, isn't Legend Cavazos playing cornerback or safety? I can't remember. He began the season at corner and he moved to safety last week. I don't know where he is this week. Groove Spoon says, agreed on opportunity there for Velling, Masunas, and tight ends becoming more involved. Going to pay dividends having that gunpowder dry. MSU Detroit fan says, so have we seen anything from Samaj Bridgman, the linebacker transfer we got from Michigan? Not yet. I think he traveled. So did Purium, the linebacker from Miami. They're more longer-term, futuristic guys. Because after this year, Jordan Turner will be gone. Halliday will be gone. Then you'll have Wayne Matthews, Jordan Hall, presumably. Brady Pretzlaff getting in there, and then Bridgman in there. And if they look for another linebacker in the portal, I don't know. All right. We're going to move on. We're going to close this down. A lot of good comments here. I'm sorry I can't get to them all. I've got some work to do. A lot of comments. They will really appreciate it. All right, we got to shut it down. Thanks for the comments over there. Sorry I couldn't get to all of them. Thanks for Ron Armstrong being with us today. Great segment with him. Great to talk Michigan State football with everybody. Sorry I had some run-on sentences and run-on answers for some of those questions and points. Sorry this was an hour and 45 minutes. I honestly want to reduce these down to 20 minutes and have more of them. That's the plan. Maybe someday it'll happen. Appreciate everybody checking in, and thanks for checking us out. Give us a like, subscribe to the channel, go to SpartanMag.com. We'd love to have you consider becoming a SpartanMag.com subscriber. If you do it and you're watching this, then you'll love being a Spartan Magger. A lot of people do. Anyway, we'll see you later. Everybody have a great weekend. Thanks for checking us out.